Good evening to all, and I have to thank Mr. Garg and his team for this opportunity that we have the Emission Control Manufacturers Association has to present our make a presentation here. Being the last speaker of the day, I have both an advantage as well as a disadvantage. The disadvantage is that most of the subjects have already been spoken on. The advantage is that this gives me the freedom to talk about my specific topic, that is after treatment for mobility. So, starting with that, Dr. Subramaniam made some very important observations in his last slide regarding the short term, the medium term, and the long term in terms of transition to net zero. For the short term, does this work? Where do I have to point it? Yeah. For the short term, he said you have the fossil fuels, of course, with after treatment. For the medium term, we have ethanol, biofuels. And for the long term, 100% ethanol and hydrogen. And this here is where I will start my discussion. But before that, let me give a brief introduction. We, the ECMA, the Emission Controls Manufacturers Association, are a group of 17 manufacturers of emission control equipment for mobility as well as stationary engines. And we work with industry, with the government, with regulators, with oil companies, with the public at large to be a very dependable, reliable source of technology and information on emissions control. And we do this by holding seminars, presenting our case in forums like this, and also by having some kind of training programs from time to time. Having said that, we are also associated with the association with the AECC, which is the automotive catalysts. AECC is the Association for Control of Emissions by Catalysts, as well as the Manufacturers of Emission Control Association of North America, who are a source of knowledge for us. Yes, so at the start, let me say that the topic of this session is very appropriate as a transition towards net zero for green mobility, but we have to start with a transition to near zero emissions. The buzzword today is electric vehicles, as we just heard Mr. Dabas speaking ahead of me. But you see, there are issues with electrification of mobility too, and one of them is the nascent technology, especially for batteries. We have so many problems with that. We have the charging infrastructure, which is still developing. We have the issue of recycling and disposal of the spent batteries, and not the least, the actual source of energy, because depending on where you're generating the energy required, whether it is from renewable sources or whether it is from coal, the well-to-wheel analysis would greatly differ. So, in the medium and long term, therefore, near and medium term, therefore, what we need is the future fuels as well as with after treatment to be able to reach a target for mobility which is near zero. And I will talk a little bit on this. Mobility therefore has two options. One is the fossil fuels and the alternate fuels. Electrification I'm not including in this discussion. So the combustion engine actually simply refuses to die because it is continuously innovating, improving, and coming to a stage where we are probably going to be comparative even to EV as we go down the road. As you see, a study by Arthur Little shows that battery electric vehicles and IC engine vehicles will probably be the same in terms of costs to use. So that achievement comes through a roadmap that we need to follow, starting with the conventional fuels with after treatment, gaseous fuels such as CNG and LPG, going through biodiesels and ethanol, through biodiesels and ethanol with the second generation, then coming down to more synthetic fuels and then hydrogen. And this, coupled with emissions control, gives us the near and medium term targets for near zero emissions. I'm not saying net zero. Net zero will come, it'll take time, but in the interim, we have to follow a route which will take us there. Now, how is that going to be done? That is going to be done by regulation. Just some time back, we again saw Dr. Subramaniam share the roadmap of going from BS6 to BS7. But what we have in front of us here is Euro 6, which has actually significantly achieved a reduction in this particular case, NOx emissions in Brussels by the use of sophisticated after-treatment technology. This slide comes from our AECC, our partner. Most of our in fact, all of our member companies are members of this association also. And a lot of high technology is being developed in Europe. And that's the reason why you have to lean on AECC to show you the developments and that are taking place in the rest of the world. Now, followed by Euro 6 is going to be a further stringency in emission norms, which is going to be the Euro 7 level of norms. And I would not really touch. You can just, I don't know whether it's visible, but you can see the stages that we are going to go through to reach this. And then we have various restrictions that are going to come in terms of this one regulation is going to come into force from 1st of July 2025. There is still under discussion, but definitely it appears that it will be coming in at that particular time. The announcement has already been made. There are different restrictions that will come for driving conditions, for durability, and coming further to the limits are going to be fuel neutral, whether you're going to use fossil fuels, CNG, LNG, biofuels, or whatever. The limits are going to be same, and there are going to be various types or stages that this regulation is going to go through. The regulatory timeline shown over here, I'm not sure whether it's very clear, but as you can see, from 2025 is where Euro 7 kicks into this. This is showing in 2026, but this is slightly dated. I think it has been preponed to 2025. And the regulations apply to passenger cars as well as trucks and buses. You would have more detail when you have the details of these slides. You'd probably be able to examine it in more detail. So the following slides, I want to make my presentation a little short, show us how regulation makes the norms so stringent that the emissions need to be reduced to near zero. And then I'm going to talk how are we going to do that. So this is a demonstrator that was done by our partners AECC on a heavy duty truck, and using very sophisticated emissions control. You can see how the advanced emission control equipment, the actual emission reductions were seen on this. That slide's a little small. I cannot read it from here, but you can see at least on the height of the blue lines on the right hand side, the extent of reduction in emissions that has been achieved using this after treatment. And this is true of all fuels that can be that are going to be used. This is a demonstrator vehicle using diesel as well as e-fuels as well as HVO, which is hydrogenated vegetable oil. Yeah. So here too, even in heavy duty, there are various reductions in the Euro 7 stage, and the demonstrator concept, which was done on a Mercedes-Benz Actros vehicle with an engine fitted with the OM 471. It was Euro 7 certified, and it has the emissions controls with EGR, that is exhaust gas recirculation, DOC, a DPF, and an SCR. These are the project partners that did this, and I will show you this is the structure of the after treatment that was used on this, which consisted of the red one is the heated catalyst, the yellow one is the diesel oxidation catalyst, the green one is the diesel, the catalyzed diesel particulate filter, the blue one is the SCR, and the violet one is the after treatment, the ammonia slip catalyst. And with this, the results that you got, here is the gaseous pollutants. As you can see, the red line is the limit, and on the right hand side, the far right, gives various conditions of the catalyst, and in all cases, the emissions are far below the minimum requirement even of the Euro 7 limits. This is for the gaseous, this is for the particulates, and here then is another slide which shows that even with renewable fuels, ultra low pollutant emissions can be confirmed on HVO as well as with e-diesel fuels. For the HVO, this today itself offers up to a 90% well-to-wheel CO2 reduction, whereas for e-diesel, the potential is to completely eliminate or 100% conversion, well to wheel, of CO2 emissions. In summary, advanced emission control systems, which were demonstrated on a truck, give you ultra-low gaseous emissions and particulates, NOx, as well as a whole range of emissions reduction, starting with cold start and near zero emissions after the initial cold start. So here I would like to show you a small video that demonstrates. Can you run that video, please?
Are shown above this at 3 sampling locations, from the engine out position at the left to the tailpipe position at the right. All components are at the ambient temperature of around 20 degrees Celsius. Engine load and vehicle speed are at the top, together with an indicator light for the ignition button. Indicator lights at the bottom show when heating measures are active. The ignition button is on as of the start of the recording, which happens now. But the engine has not yet been started. During these first seconds, preheating with EHC is active. The temperature starts to rise in the EHC. Especially now when the engine starts after 8 seconds, and you can see an immediate increase in the exhaust temperature behind the electric heated catalyst. Look at the conversion of NOx emissions from the engine out value at the left to the tailpipe value at the right. We already have a significant conversion rate over the system from the first second we pulled away. This will continuously improve while the system is warming up. When reaching this traffic light, we are already reaching the point of near zero emissions, as you can see that at the NOx sampling point at the tailpipe. We will maintain this for all the rest of the driving, independent of the condition covered. So we showed it is really within 30 seconds or 150 meters of driving that we reach near zero emissions from the demonstrator vehicle.
So, can you get back to the last slide, please? Yeah. So with this, our 17 member companies thank you for this.